Today, we're digging into a sermon that poses a really interesting question about prayer and finds the answers in the words of the ancient prophets.
So, have you ever wondered if your prayers are, I don't know, missing something? The sermon we're looking at suggests that a lot of our religious efforts, even with the best intentions, might be falling flat because they're missing one key ingredient. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to walk through 5 key ideas, starting with prayer without wisdom, then the 2 rains, plowing unplowed ground, iron horns, bronze hooves, and finally, trampled like mud. It's a whole journey from a common problem to a pretty powerful solution.
First up, prayer without wisdom. This is all about what the sermon calls the misguided start, basically jumping into action without having the right kind of knowledge first. Right out of the gate, the sermon hits us with this quote from Hosea, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice, knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings." The point being made is that God is more interested in our understanding and wisdom than in us just going through the motions. It's like you have to listen and get it first. Only then do all the prayers and offerings actually mean something. And get this, the sermon argues that without that divine wisdom, a prayer can actually become a wicked thing. Think about it. You might end up praying for something like your enemy's downfall, which completely goes against the whole message of mercy. So the idea is you have to get that knowledge of God first. Otherwise, how do you even know what you're supposed to be asking for?
Okay, so if wisdom is so crucial, how do you get it? Well, the sermon uses this really powerful metaphor to explain the process.
And here's the verse, "He will come to us like the winter rains, like the spring rains that water the earth." What's being said here is that this connection, this blessing, is as sure as the sunrise. But, and this is a big but, it doesn't all come at once. It comes in stages, kind of like the 2 different rains you need for a good harvest. The promise is there, but getting the full benefit means you got to stick around for both.
This old 2 rains idea is really the heart of it. A crop needs that early rain to start growing, right? But it also needs the latter rain to produce the full harvest. If you miss one, you get an incomplete result. And that's the whole point being made about our spiritual lives. A little bit of effort gets you a little bit of a blessing, but it's only when you see it all the way through that you get the whole shebang.
This brings us to what the speaker calls break Christians, and you can probably guess what that means. These are people who start off strong. They're praying, they're giving, but as soon as things get tough, they just stop. They hit the bricks. They get that first taste of blessing, that early rain, but they don't stick around for the second one, so they completely miss out on the full harvest.
But here's the thing. This persistence isn't about just sitting around and waiting. Nope. It actually leads to a call for something way more radical.
And that brings us to Hosea 10:12. Break up your unplowed ground. This is where the sermon really shifts gears from just enduring to taking action. That unplowed ground, it's interpreted as making a really radical, maybe even unconventional, decision in your faith. It's about doing something totally new to seek God.
Now, the sermon makes a really important point here. This isn't about looking at what other people are doing and trying to one-up them. Not at all. It's about breaking your own habits. Step 1 is that radical decision, but step 2 is crucial. You have to sow into yourself first. Build yourself up with God's word. Then, step 3, you act differently. You pray more, you give more, you just live on a whole other level than you did before.
Okay, and this is where everything starts to connect. All this hard work, this persistence, this plowing new ground, it's not just about surviving tough times.
Which brings us to part 4, iron horns, bronze hoofs. This is what the sermon calls the ultimate goal, God's big plan for anyone who sticks with it.
Is for absolute victory. Yeah, that's the whole point. The end game of all this persistent, radical faith isn't just survival. It's empowerment for a total win. Just listen to this imagery from Micah. "Arise and thresh, for I will make your horn iron and your hoofs bronze. You shall beat in pieces many peoples." I mean, wow. The message here is that God's plan isn't for you to just get by. It's to completely transform you, from a victim into a victor. This isn't about playing defense. This is about being given the tools to go on the offense and completely overcome. So these iron horns and bronze hooves are basically divine weapons. And they're not just for fending off attacks. The whole point, according to this teaching, is that endless struggle is not the goal. The goal is to be armed with something unbreakable so you can decisively crush your spiritual enemies. It's about achieving total victory.
And that leads us to the final outcome, the last piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it's pretty dramatic.
The sermon lands on this verse from Micah. "Then my enemy will see,
and she will be trampled down like the mud in the streets. This is talking about the final result for anyone who mocked your faith. It's promising this complete reversal, where everyone who doubted you has to watch you triumph.
So let's just recap this whole arc. It starts with prayer that's missing wisdom. But then you gain that wisdom. You persevere through both reigns. And that leads you to make a radical decision, to plow new ground. That decision is what unlocks these divine weapons, the iron horns and bronze hoofs. And it all ends in a victory so complete, the enemy is just gone, trampled like mud. It's a full journey from being frustrated and ineffective to being completely triumphant.
And the sermon ends by taking this huge, epic vision and making it personal. It leaves us with a question to chew on. What unplowed ground is waiting for you? What radical decision do you need to make to see this kind of breakthrough in your own life?